Welcome to MS Craftshop. Today I invite you to the tutorial where I will show you how to create an album cover. In almost every tutorial I prepare, making the cover is the stage I must repeat every time. Let's be honest, creating a cover is the most tedious part of the project. While it's essential, it often involves repeating the same steps. Of course, except for more complicated projects, I'm talking about the simplest type of covers. With this in mind, I've decided to dedicate the tutorial exclusively to this stage. It means that in my future tutorials, I will skip the detailed cover making process and provide only the measurements for the cover parts along with a link to this video. Before I start, I want to highlight one more thing. In this video, I will show you how I create the cover. I will share the techniques I have learned and what works for me, but it doesn't mean that this is the only way to do it. If you already have a method and developed way of creating a cover, use your own. I believe the tutorial may be helpful for some of you. It will provide more detail than usual, and I hope to clarify many concepts. To make a cover, I use a 3mm beer mat. I buy it on eBay in A3 sheets and cut them into smaller pieces with a trimmer or rotary cutter. Alternatively, you can use sticker cardboard instead of a beer mat. I use covering paper to protect the beer mat rather than regular scrapbooking paper, as it doesn't work well for my needs. It's not that you can't use scrapbooking paper, you can, but its durability is lower than paper explicitly designed for this purpose. Many online stores offer a wide variety of covering paper, ranging from completely plain colors to multicolored patterns, with surfaces that are either smooth or textured. I have tested many of them, and trust me, they perform well. Another material that I use to protect the beer mat is a bookbinding cloth. A bookbinding cloth is a specialized fabric specifically designed for bookbinding. Using it ensures that the cover will last for many years, enhancing the overall quality of the project. Bookbinding cloth is available in various colors, thicknesses, and textures. It can be satin or shiny, offering unlimited choices. It has paper on the inside, making it very easy to stick to the surface of the cover. However, one drawback of bookbinding cloth is that it is significantly more expensive than covering paper. I use double-sided tape to attach the beer mat to the covering paper. I used to use glue, but I noticed that it sometimes caused irregularity on the surface of the glued cover. Since I switched to double-sided tape, this issue has been resolved. However, I still use glue for the bookbinding cloth. When using glue, it's essential to apply it evenly across the entire surface of the beer mat and be careful not to overuse it. Even so, the glue will cause the cover to bend slightly, which is normal. Therefore, setting the cover aside to dry after gluing the bookbinding cloth is best. I recommend pressing it down with a heavy book or placing it under a cutting mat to keep it flat while it dries. When gluing the beer mat to the covering paper, I leave a 2 cm distance from the cover's edges. Of course, we may have a smaller piece of the covering paper. Leaving a 1.5 cm distance will also be fine. It's just much easier to fold over the larger cover piece. Before gluing the beer mat, I mark a starting point in the top left corner of the covering paper. This helps me ensure that I glue it evenly. If you accidentally glue it down a little diagonally, it won't be very noticeable if the covering paper is a single color. However, if the cover has patterns such as squares or stripes, the final appearance may look odd after gluing. First, I remove liners from the middle tapes before attaching the beer mat to the covering paper. The double-sided tape is incredibly strong. It sticks immediately and securely when it touches the surface. The strips of tape that I leave on the edges allow me to maneuver the cover and position it correctly. After gluing the beer mat in place, I remove the remaining liner from the tapes using a die pick. always leave a half centimeter gap between the beer mats. You can measure this using a ruler and pencil or a T-shaped ruler, which is preferable. This tool makes maintaining equal distances between the cover parts easier. You can purchase it from various online stores, including my Etsy shop. You'll find the link to the item in the video description. I repeat the same steps for the remaining parts of the cover. It's time to tackle the corners of the cover. Many people worry about this stage because how we manage the corners significantly affects the final appearance of the cover. How much covering paper should be trimmed to cover the corners aesthetically? Usually, after cutting the corners, you should leave a margin of paper equal to the cardboard's thickness, in my case, a beer mat. There is a tool that can make this part of the process much easier. It's a triangle-shaped tool that helps you accurately mark where to cut off the excess paper. Simply place the tool against the corner and use scissors or a paper knife to trim the paper. This tool is also available in my Etsy online shop, and a link is in the description. If, by any chance, something goes wrong, you can cover the corners with metal corner protectors. However, I assure you that after some time you will become so skilled that it will feel like a mechanical process. This tool is optional, but I find it helpful for scoring the cover around the beer mat, which makes folding the paper easier. Then, I apply a half centimeter double-sided tape around the edge of the beer mat and press the tape with a paper creaser to remove air bubbles. I begin gluing the covering paper from the longer edges of the cover. I add glue and fold the cover, starting at the center and moving outwards towards the sides. I wipe off any excess glue with a paper towel. Before folding the covering paper over the shorter edges, I use creaser paper to create an inward fold on the corners in a circular motion. After that, I fold the covering paper and check if the final result satisfies me. If needed, I make corrections, remove the liner from the tape, apply glue, and repeat the previously performed steps for the other edges of the cover. It's time to move on to the next stage of the process, finishing the inside of the cover. For the middle part, I typically use leftover scraps of paper that collect at the bottom of a drawer. The piece of paper I'm using is 9 cm wide, but a 7 or 8 cm wide scrap would also work well. As for the height, I always use a paper that is half centimeter shorter than the height of the cover. Since this album is 20.5 cm high, the piece of paper I'm using is 20 cm long. Now, how can I glue the middle panel straight? In folio albums, a slight curvature isn't a major issue. However, we attach the album pages to this section in regular photo albums. I usually glue this piece by eye, trying to align it as straight as possible. However, there is a way to do it that makes this process much easier. Mark the center of a scrap paper by drawing horizontal lines along its long edges. Then mark the center horizontal lines on the album's inner sides of the cover. Position the scrap paper on the album so that its center lines align with the center lines of the covers. This will ensure that the scrap paper is glued on straight. While you may encounter some imperfections, you can always blend the crooked ruler. Overall, I believe this method will work well and be particularly helpful for beginners. Before I attach a piece of paper to the spine, I mark the places of folds. This helps me toughen and stretch the paper, reducing the risk of cracking while folding the covers. Add add glue to the scrap paper's middle part and the gaps between the beer mats. Next, apply glue to the remaining areas of the scrap paper. In the meantime, I repeat gently pressing the folding areas with a paper creaser. After attaching the paper, press the folding areas with a paper creaser again, carefully lifting the cover. Repeat this action at each folding place. I try to maneuver the paper creaser so that the paper's surface sticks well to the covering paper in the gap. As you can see, it takes a while. However, before fully folding the covers, I set the cover aside for a few minutes to allow the glue to dry, and at this time I prepare 2 pieces of paper that I stick to the sides of the cover, completing the entire process of creating the cover. Usually, I leave a 2 to 3 mm margin between the paper scraps and the cover, so my scraps measure 16 and 3 by 20 and 3 cm. Before I glue them, I finish fully folding the covers. Make sure the paper sticks perfectly to the surface everywhere. If you notice any spots not glued down properly, you can easily fill them in using a paper scrap. Just apply a small amount of glue to the corner of the paper and fill in the missing area. The final step involves attaching the scraps of paper to the covers. A few more little corrections, and voila, the cover is ready. As I mentioned at the beginning of the tutorial, I share the techniques I have learned and what works for me to make an album cover. I tried to provide details on each stage of the video, and I hope you will find the tutorial helpful. If you have any questions regarding any process step, please write them in the comments. Finally, I want to share a few more words about the tools used in the first part of the tutorial. I'm referring to the T-shaped ruler and the triangle-shaped tool. If you believe these tools could be beneficial for your work, I invite you to visit my Etsy online store, where they are available in 3 colors: turquoise, blue and pink. I also offer glue holders to complete your set that keeps the glue bottle upside down. The glue is always ready for use and at hand. Any glue that drips from the bottle collects on the holder's base. It can be easily removed once it dries. With the promo code COVER10, you will get a 10% discount. You can find links to all the items in the video description. That's all for today. Thank you for watching and see you soon!